Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Wednesday, April 17th. We're going to take a look at AA today. I thought we'd take a look at Alcoa because earnings is coming up, and we may see where it could hit some support or resistance levels, whether it booms or busts, and of course where it may sort of hug or pin itself to if it does move relatively sideways. Now, I'm not going to leave this on the chart, but just to point it out, because it's a sort of recent evolution of the pattern. We had this downtrend resistance that had trapped the stock for quite some time, since about a year ago actually, and it broke out through this level late 2023, but then immediately came back down and tested essentially 3 times or so off of, you see, motion here, motion here, motion here, off of that downtrend resistance, sort of treating it as support level, bounced off of it, and that third bounce sort of did the trick and allowed it to push through these levels, consolidate and confirm support through a bunch of them, and that's sort of what leads us to where we are today. So I'm going to get rid of that, but this is just to sort of show the motion that's kind of leading us into earnings. Now, the levels that I have on the chart, I tried to cover a pretty big range in case there is a big reaction or in case there is a sustained reaction through the coming days and weeks. So we covered from 26 all the way up to 50, and we're sort of, in the middle-ish of that right now. Situated about 36, 37. So if it does move relatively sideways, I have 34, 39 to the downside, 38, 19 to the upside. It's not to say that those aren't decent percentage gains and losses, but again, it's large enough catalysts like earnings that, it's not unheard of to get the 10, 15, 20% reaction. So, if it were to bat itself around between these levels, that to me would be sort of, additional consolidation around a catalyst, a large catalyst, and be relatively sideways motion, just sort of continuing to set itself up for the next move. Now, if it does get a bigger push to the upside, 41, 18, 45, 84, and 50, 59 look like the strong resistance levels to me. Some of these have pretty big percentage changes in between these levels, and where that's the case, some additional granular levels might start to take shape as well. If it does fall below 34, 39, 32, 42, 2904, and 2607 are the levels that I have to the downside. Now, in the think or swim side of things, just something to point out here, and then we'll zoom into more recent price action, but see lengthy trigger here and fire, that brought the stock price from, it was triggering at about $32. When it fired, it brought it down to about 24 or so. So really good percentage change there. An additional brief trigger and fire brought it back to the mid-range. And then you see this trigger and fire, another good call out. Brief counter move down and then up out of the channel. And then it drew back into the channel, sort of batted itself around a little bit. And then the most recent trigger and fire, again, another really good call out. So pretty sort of consistent with decent callouts by the TTM squeeze indicator. This one here, bringing the price when it was all said and done, the last trigger candle coming in around $28, and then that fire is the one that brought it up here to 37 or so. So again, really big percentage gains there. Now, we are situated relatively high in the channel, and there is no current no current trigger happening on the TTM squeeze indicator. So just to mention that. And the question that I have at the moment is, like I said, it's situated relatively high in the channel, but as we've seen in this chart and in many charts, when a stock is situated high in the channel, it's using the wave cloud as support, right? Which is exactly what it did here. It kind of was batting its head around on the upper bound of the channel and found support on the wave cloud, right, with all of these candles here, was able to push it up out of the channel, got a brief support off of the upper bound of the channel, but didn't have much gas left in the tank, and now is back with a full candle body in the channel, but still on the wave cloud. So it still could find additional support on the wave cloud. So it looks to me like it's trying to sort of like gauge further exhaustion of this bullish momentum. And so that's what I'd be looking for if it was just sort of like any typical trading day. Being that earnings is coming and it's a big enough catalyst that it can just sort of like throw patterns and typical structure out the window, it may or may not sort of play a factor. So if the bulls have been pushing this higher and it's been riding the wave cloud for really good fundamental reasons that are then backed up and supported by the report, then we may see additional movement in that direction. If, however, the recent run-up that you can see maybe a bit more clearly here, if that seems unwarranted based on the nuts and bolts of the report itself, then there may be sort of a less bullish reaction to the earnings report. So the channel is, percentage-wise, decently wide. You have 31.47 to the downside, 37.24 to the upside. Keep in mind this channel is dynamic, so it will shift with price action, so it may not be in those exact spots depending when you watch the video, but it's covering a lot of ground to just keep the price in the channel if it wants to do that. But if it were to push back out of the upper bound of the channel, like I said right now, that would mean climbing above 37.24, and if it does get a relatively negative or a strongly negative reaction to the downside, 31.47 would be sort of the stopping point at the moment to keep it within the channel. And of course, that all-important mid-range of the channel situated right now at 34.36. If it does come down like we saw here and can confirm support, again, that may indicate that there's more bullish momentum that needs to be exhausted before it's going to pull back more sort of securely or consistently into the channel. Now, if it does pull back into the channel here, you see it was recently out of the channel, pulled back in, tried to find support on the channel, but so it's just sort of like a consolidation before its next move, which was actually down, lost that support, fell really quickly to the full lower bound of the channel, and then sort of had that roller coaster ride where it was lower bound, and then instead of trying to catch the mid-range of the channel from the upper bound like we saw, it was trying to catch it from the lower bound, and it just reconfirmed resistance there. We saw that push the price down further down into the 25 range before it had this most recent sort of rally upward. So we'll see what it wants to do with the reaction. It may just sort of like skip a bunch of space, if you will, like we see here, right? Like it may leave a large gap if it does have a big reaction, and we'll sort of digest it as it goes. But these are the levels. I guess I should stay zoomed out here. These are the levels that I have. Again, 50 down to 26, so trying to cover a lot of ground, and a decent number of levels in between. All right, folks, I hope that you've had a happy hump day, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.